Hello, hello. Today we are continuing the feminine energetics theme and diving into the art of polarity in business, aka knowing when to lead and when to lean back. If you have ever found yourself stuck in quote doing mode, in the constant proving, pushing, and performing, this episode is going to be your your permission slip and guide on how to rebalance, because here's what you need to understand. Your next level of success is not hiding in another strategy or more action. And I think a lot of you probably already know that because you've tried that route. Your next level of success is waiting in your energy to be unlocked, or actually, better said, to be allowed. So let's talk about how to heal your relationship with doing, earning, and proving, and how to unlock your feminine edge, the one that makes business feel effortless, magnetic, and wildly profitable. Welcome to All In with Allie, the podcast for online business owners and entrepreneurs who are ready to create the life and business of their dreams. I am so happy you are here. So like I said in the intro, we're continuing the feminine energetics theme. We kicked it off last week. So if you've not listened to last week's episode, you do not have to listen in order, but I would recommend you go back, because all of the episodes this month are around magnetism and receiving. So if you are not satisfied with the level of results that you are calling into your business, if you are feeling overworked, if you're feeling a lack of energy and excitement, if you're feeling resentful or a lack of creativity or overly blah for any of those reasons, and my God, if you are feeling burnt out and uninspired, this month is for you. Tune in, honey. And also, I was thinking that we've covered these topics before, mostly with some incredible guests who really know these topics so much better than me, or, we're talking about these things well before I really understood them. And I've had the privilege of doing episodes with many of these ladies, two of whom, Kelly Jones and Tara Marino. So what I've decided to do is we are going to make sure that the throwback Thursdays for the remaining Thursdays of the month are with those ladies. And there might be other ones too. I just need to go back and look. I think there are. So those are the two that came to mind. Keely Jones, we talked about God over the algorithm and growing pains. That was the title of the episode. And then Tara Marino, who is the founder of Elegant Femme, we talked about living an unapologetically beautiful and soul-led life. And these conversations were magical and seeping in feminine energetics. So definitely listen to the throwbacks if you're looking for even more vibes and how-tos and examples for feminine energetics. And also, speaking of Keely and Tara Marino, why I was thinking about them is because here very soon, you are going to be getting details for a huge virtual summit that I'm putting together. It's actually to support a charity that's near and dear to my heart. Every single dollar of proceeds that we raise through this summit is going to this charity. And Tara and Keely are two of my speakers in this summit. There's a full list of powerhouses that are also going to be speaking, including myself. Tickets are going to be $33, and every single dollar is going to go to this charity, who also donates 100% of proceeds as well. So you're going to be getting all the details on that soon. I didn't want to give all the details until I had the links ready for you, and they are coming very, very soon. But since I mentioned Keely and Tara, I wanted to go ahead and drop that little hint for you, because I'm really proud and I'm really excited. And you specifically are going to be thrilled, because this is going to be the ultimate masterclass. Well, anyway, I'm not going to say anymore. You're going to freak out. And it's $33. Okay. And one more thing. I am hoping that by the next episode, I have some major personal life news for you. And I hate when people do this. I hate when people are like, they tease like teaser, and they say like something so big is coming and they give you no details. And it's like, who cares? Like until nobody cares. And they do it obviously for marketing purposes. I really try not to do that. But I say this because just listen to the next episode. If you know anything about me, you are going to freak out, and it goes right in alignment with what I will be covering next week, which is the topic of why needing nothing makes you irresistible. Okay, so all of this is going to make sense, but I am freaking out behind the scenes because you'll hear. I cannot say, okay. Anyway, I hate when people do that, but I just have to say, and I say this because I want you to tune into the next episode, and I pray to God I have something really big to share with you. And if I don't, it's going to be a fire episode anyway. Okay. So let's get into the vibes. Polarity in business, when to lead, when to lean back. So let's first understand this. What does this mean? Now, in the last episode, we dove really deep into like what feminine energetics is. We dove into the difference of masculine and feminine energy. And that's essentially what polarity is, right? It's opposing energies in anything, right? So for our purposes, this is the dance between the masculine, which is the doing, the leading, and the structure of our lives, of our businesses, of our energy, and the feminine, which is the being, the receiving, the attracting, the flow of it all. Both energies exist in us. Everybody, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, no matter who or how or what you identify with, this exists in all of us. And both energies exist in our businesses. And why imbalance of these two often leads to burnout, overworking, and lack of momentum is because people, and for good reason, don't understand the feminine energetic side. We've been conditioned wildly to over appreciate and over glamorize the masculine part of running specifically a business, right? Like that's what we see. That's hustle culture. This works very well for typically male-led businesses because they thrive in their masculine. Obviously, this can go for women too. We don't have to get into that. But anyway, when there is an imbalance between masculine and feminine energies, that typically is what leads to what many of us can relate to and what many of us have experienced, which is burnout, the lack of creativity, a plateau, just like overall lack of results and excitement and creativity and all the things that we want in our business because of that imbalance, because we're putting way too much emphasis in the masculine versus also integrating and leaning on the feminine. So while we usually hear about an imbalance in masculine, there also can be an imbalance in feminine too. So here are quick examples of what imbalance looks like in both energies. Too much masculine in business looks like over control, micromanaging, constant hustle, constant doing, constant maybe launching, unless you have like a huge team and that's what you prefer and you have the structure for that. So it's not all on you. And very tight grips, like gripping energy on outcomes, right? Think white-knuckling your business and also the results. Too much feminine on the other side looks like a lack of structure, inconsistency, and an overall avoidance and maybe even a repelling energy of strategy, which I've absolutely seen. I work with women who are all across the spectrum. And it's always interesting to me because, like I shared in the last episode, I'm somebody who typically will rely a little too much on the masculine. And that's very natural for me, just because that's the way that I've been conditioned and what I've seen from my parents and, whatever. But it's always so fascinating when I work with a woman who is on the other side of the spectrum, because there's a part of me that initially is like, man, I wish I was like that. But then I see it in action. I'm like, wow, that's equally as torturous, right? That's like a bag floating in the wind. 1 minute you're over here, the next minute you're over here. There's no structure, there's no consistency. It's just, we need that balance of both. So the sweet spot is knowing exactly when to lead, exactly when to push, exactly when to move forward, and then also knowing when to lean back, aka knowing when to move and to do, and then knowing when to be and receive. So how do we do this? We're going to discuss first when to lead. We're going to discuss when to tap in that masculine energy in our business. And then we're going to discuss when to lean back. And then we're going to get into the ultimate balance, which is the feminine edge in your business. So when do we lead? For those of us who are a little bit over, we lean and a little bit more masculine. We typically know this, but we need to know when to stop. And for those of you who lean a little bit more feminine in your business, you are going to get a lot from this little area. So the purpose of our masculine energy is to set direction, to gain clarity, to protect our vision, to set boundaries, and to move us forward, to actually do the actions. There's going to be action required no matter what. So there are going to be times where things beautifully fall on your lap, right? Like you are truly just in receival mode and opportunities come. But there's still going to be action required to receive, right? Like receiving is an action and there is action required. So anyway, how to know when to lead in, more in your masculine, to know that is when there is a point in time where there are decisions that need to be made. Clear decisions, not like, well, I could do this, I could do that. That's not a decision. There is a time when you need to be the CEO, when you need to lead the ship forward. It's your business. It's your baby. You have to call the shots. So when your masculine is needed is when those clear decisions need to be made. And also when boundaries need to be set. Otherwise, you're vulnerable, right? Setting boundaries, I used to perceive as more of like a feminine thing. It's actually a very masculine, protective thing to do and absolutely necessary in our business. So what this can look like without boundaries is like if you're, like I talk a lot about business bestie culture and how that's something that I'm very against. And what this will look like is where you are always available, right? Like people have high levels of access to you. This is a little too, I don't even want to say too feminine because I don't even know if that's a feminine thing. It's simply just, it's a lack of boundaries. It's not business. I don't know what it is. It's like hobby behavior. It's immature. It's just not what you want to do, right? So like none of us in business are meant to be overly accessed. So anyway, that's just an example of like where boundaries need to be set. That is a masculine move. Obviously, structuring of offers, setting prices, creating launch plans. Where are we going? How do we get there? These are masculine decisions and moves that need to be made. And then this is a really, really big one. Taking aligned action, even when emotions fluctuate, even when we're up and down. This is a really big one that for my clients who are more on the feminine side of business, they're not very well balanced and they're more on the feminine side. This is a big one that I support them through because one day, right, depending on where they are in their cycle, depending on how they're feeling that day for whatever reason, depending on outside circumstances, one day they might feel like moving their business forward or moving forward in the launch that they have created for themselves. And then the next day they're in a bad mood or, just anything external or internal, quite frankly, is affecting them. So then they stop and there's action to be made because that was the plan and they're not doing it. But it's not coming from an aligned place. It's coming simply from an emotional reactive place. When you can understand the difference between taking aligned action anyway versus being reactive emotionally or circumstantially, that will change it all for you because there is a fine line. It is a little difficult to feel sometimes. Like, do I not want to move on this thing because God's sending me a sign? Because the aligned thing to do is actually not to do it anymore? Or am I being affected externally by fear, by results or lack of results? Am I simply just being reactive based on what I am perceiving that's happening in this moment? You have to differentiate between the two. Otherwise, this is a lot of hot and cold, back and forth, mixed signaling and messaging. This leads to a lot of stop and go in business and mixed results, right? Periods of receiving and then periods of really nothing or plateau because, again, just depending on what's happening around you, you let dictate what you do. Right? So masculine energy really serves us when we set a plan and we say, okay, until we know for sure that the aligned move is to do something different, this is the plan. This is what we are agreeing to do. This is what we are committing to, period. Independent of circumstances. And you do that. That's what leads to consistency and consistent results and actually getting somewhere in your business. Okay. Masculine energy is leading, right? But we don't want to force. We don't want to take it too far into too much of a pushing energy, right? Like we eventually have to balance. So how to lead and move your business forward without getting into that forcing energy, I would describe as leadership that is deeply rooted in trust and in aligned action versus pressure and scarcity. So we're not being reactive. We've set the plan. We know the goal. We have our eye on the prize, but we're not, the second that we start dipping into scarcity and fear, we're pausing. We refuse to, we're not going to take misaligned action due to fear, essentially. Like we have that deep rooted trust that if the results aren't resulting yet, that's okay. We're going to keep moving forward with the plan because we fully trust in the balance of these energies. And at some point it's going to click into gear. So that is when to lead. That is when to lean more on your masculine energy in your business. Now, when does that cease? And how do we know that it's time to lean back and shift and rely more on our feminine energy in our business? What this looks like is surrendering, accessing and trusting our intuition, allowing ourselves to fully be the energy of that we wish to receive versus all of the doing and the forcing to get there. How do we know that it's time to do that? I'm going to tell you right now, the ultimate sign that we know that it's time to lean back and do all the things that I just said is when you are feeling exhausted, when you know that you're forcing results. You're not just doing the things to set the stage. Now we're in the pushing energy. And when we feel that emotional depletion, these are all signs that you've kind of taken it too far. The goal is to not get there, right? I'm not saying when you've hit the point of exhaustion, now it's time to lean back and receive. No, that's saying that there's an imbalance here and you really need to pay attention to this. And I'll tell you exactly how I've started to manage this myself as somebody who has struggled with this. But what really I had to get through my heads, again, since this was something that I did struggle with, is I had to help myself understand that, quote, leaning back doesn't necessarily mean that I'm doing nothing. It doesn't mean that I'm giving up. It doesn't mean that there is more that I could do, but I'm choosing necessarily not to do it, even though that is kind of what it is. Leaning back is an action. It is a choice and it's very productive. Like when I heard somebody say for the first time, rest is productive, that was one of the biggest light bulbs that went off in my head. Because up until that point, I would try and make my rest productive. I still catch myself doing this. It's like, God forbid, I just relax and watch a shitty reality show. I have to be outlining a podcast episode for the next day, or I need to be engaging on my content or responding to DMs or something, right? When I really understood rest is a choice, it's a really powerful one, equally as productive as the doing. That is what relying on feminine energy is too. It's the exact same thing. Surrender, being versus doing, is productive. So leaning back, again, it doesn't mean doing nothing. It simply means that you are energetically open to receive. It's a knowing that you've done enough, right? Like imagine you're making a recipe, you're cooking in the kitchen. I don't know much about this, but bear with me. Okay. You've gathered the components for the recipe. You've put them together in the bowl. You've done the mixing. You've done the smashing. You've done all the things. You've done the prep work. You've preheated the freaking oven. And then there comes a point where you put all of the doing into the oven so the oven can do the rest of the heavy lifting for you. Now, I don't know about you, but when I put those ingredients into an oven, I'm not sitting there watching the oven, stressing, making myself feel bad and feeling guilty that I'm not doing enough. I know the oven's got me. I know even though I'm not doing anything physically related to cooking in that moment, I'm not sitting there stressing about that. I've done my part. Now it's time for outside forces, the things outside of myself, the invisible components, to do their part. So then that's my time. Go lean back. Go turn on the show. Go prop up my feet. Go enjoy a glass of wine. Go have a conversation. Go do something else. The oven's got me. Same thing. So where a lot of people go wrong, and where I have absolutely gone wrong in this, is because I would do the doing part. And then I know it's the time to receive, right? I know it's time to do the leaning back, but the whole time I'm quote leaning back, I'm stressed about it. I feel guilty about it. And I'm overthinking and sitting there. It's the same thing as like staring at the oven, wondering how soon the cookies are going to be done, or staring at the microwave and wondering when the popcorn's going to pop, and hitting that eject button again and again and again, stopping the process, slowing the process down. So there is a difference. Just because you're not technically doing anything doesn't mean that you're open to receive. If you don't believe you're receiving in that moment, you will block it. There is going to be your free will is going to impact how much or how little you receive in that moment. That's the same thing as hitting that eject button before the popcorn pops. So there has to be a point where you know that you've done enough and you trust that the invisible forces are going to handle the rest. Okay, so it's full trust versus constant doubt versus guilt versus fear. That's what true surrender is. So examples of this is trusting that your one piece of content that you wait until you feel good and you pour a good amount of energy into because you know that that's what's required for that piece of content. You trust that once you post it, it's going to do the heavy lifting for you. It's going to indoctrinate the people at scale. It's going to attract in the right people into your world. This looks like putting out an offer and trusting that the clients will be attracted to the offer and come to you versus you having to go out and send a bunch of cold messages and chase the clients and say, hey, did you see I posted this? Did you see that I did this? This looks like surrendering to launch outcomes. This looks like I've done the work. I'm done with the work and whatever happens, so be it. Easier said than done, but that's what that looks like. So why this gets so hard for us and why we often have an imbalance of our masculine versus our feminine, whichever one you fall on, is again, it's typically due to old conditioning, what we've seen demonstrated the most in our lives up until this point, and or it's due to a broken relationship with doing, earning, and proving. That's typically why there is an imbalance. So if you know that you fall far on one end of the spectrum, the goal is to be smack dab in the middle. There's going to be seasons, there's going to be moments where we're doing a little bit more than receiving, where we're receiving a little bit more than doing. It is a dance. It's something that you do learn over time. And it does, in my experience, get a lot more intuitive when you start practicing this, just like anything else. But we want to rebalance, right? Our goal here is to heal our relationship with the doing and the earning and the proving. So for those of you who struggle with this, there's a few things that I want you to do. The first thing that I want you to do is I want you to do your best to detach your self-worth from the results. This is a big one. This is one that when I did this for myself and I figured this out in my own business, this was another major light bulb moment for me, because to me, how much money I was making every month dictated who I was, like how good of a business owner I was, how good of a wife I was, how cool and interesting of a human I was so attached to my results, not just in money, but how many people were engaging on my content, how many clients were coming through, how many opportunities I was getting. It all dictated who I felt I was. And when I was in a really low season, this was really hard for me, because when those results stopped resulting or seemed like they had slowed down in the moment for a myriad of reasons, that really messed with me, because then I didn't know who I was. My identity was so wrapped up in that. So what I had to learn how to do, and what I realized in that moment, and it was such a blessing, because in that moment, I was like, it was so clear. I was like, wait, I'm still a good human. I'm still a great wife. I'm still a good mother, it was so clear that when the results stopped, I saw, wait, I still have so many other identities and things that I bring to the table, even though in this moment, the results that I'm looking for are down. But when results are up, and it's tricky, because usually when results are high and things are working, it's very easy to allow that to kind of link to your identity and serve your identity. See, I do know what I'm talking about. See, I am good at what I do. See, I am an exemplary human. Look, God loves me. I'm God's favorite. Look at all these amazing things happen. And you got to walk that fine line, because if you make the mistake of attaching your identity and your self-worth to that, the second that they drip is the second that you're going to start questioning who you are and what that means about you. So at the end of the day, you are not the money that you make. You are not the amount of people that want to work with you. You are not the quality of clients that are coming through the door. It does tell you something about your energy for sure, but you are not your energy in these singular moments or even in seasons of time. Detach yourself. You are who you are, independent of the results. The results are just a byproduct of what you're focusing on and the energy that you're emitting in that moment. And your results are actually proof of who you were in the past. The results that are happening now is not because of what you're doing right now. It's what you've done and the energy that you have emitted in the past. There's a lag there. So it has nothing about who you are now anyway. Another way that we want to start rebalancing this is we want to redefine what, quote, earning looks like. So if earning to you and receiving to you looks like doing an effort, well, then if you want to earn more, you're automatically going to make the terrible mistake of believing that you have to do more. More equals more. I want to earn more money. I need to take more actions. I want to call in more clients. I need to do more things. I want to receive more of this thing. I need to put out more of this thing. At some point, you're going to burn yourself out. You're going to hit a ceiling. There's only so much energy that you have. There's only so much time in the day. There's only so much that you can do. So what we want to redefine this as and start looking at this is earning and receiving is an energy exchange. It's what you allow. Will there be action required? Yes, as we've covered. But how much you do is not attached to how much you can receive. These things are now completely separate forever. Your energy will dictate how much you will let in based on your self-worth, based on how much you think you can earn in that moment, based on how much you think that action that you're doing will allow you to receive. And then another way that we can work on rebalancing this is practice receiving without guilt. Practice receiving without doing anything. This is another one that was so huge for me. Right? Like when somebody would give me a compliment, the first thing I would do, even before saying thank you, I would say, "Oh, you're pretty too. Oh, thank you. I love your jacket. Oh, well, let me give you a full breakdown of where I got this from and let me tell you 3 good things about you." It was like, God forbid I just say, "Wow, thank you so much. That was so kind. You just, you made my day. That made me feel really good. Thank you." It was like, let me pay you back for that. I didn't feel comfortable just receiving. There was a level of guilt there. I would notice when Chris would do something nice for me, I felt like I needed to reciprocate. Same thing with friends. Like if a friend did something nice for my birthday or just nice in general, I would make a note like, you better do something nice for them soon. Like reciprocate that. And I'm not saying there's not times I'm not saying that obviously there's going to be situations where, yeah, reciprocation in relationships is key. But when somebody's paying you a compliment or giving you an opportunity to rest, right? Like I remember when I had my babies and my mother-in-law would come and help, or a friend would send food or something. It was like, even that felt a little uncomfortable for me. It almost felt like there was a time in a season. This was back when I had crews before I knew anything about what we're talking about. I would feel resentful when people would do things for me because I was like, oh, now there's more that I need to do. How messed up is that? How many of you can relate to that? I know some of you can. This points to such an imbalance. Same thing like when people would give me money, like when my dad would come over and they would bring over groceries because they wanted to cook dinner that night or something. I would feel guilty about it. Same thing with support. So how you can start rebalancing this is by practicing receiving for the sake of receiving. And what really, really helped me with this is realizing how good it feels when you give to somebody and they receive it well. Like if you've ever given a gift to somebody and they really enjoy it and they let you know, they're like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. This is such a surprise. Oh my goodness. Like, wow. And like when you give something, whether it be a gift, whether it be support, anything to somebody who receives really well, it feels so good for the giver. That's a gift in and of itself. That's true. Receiving is a gift. Receiving well is a gift for the gifter. And again, if you've experienced this, you know. So when I realized that from being on the opposite end of that, I was like, wait, my receiving is also a gift. And if you've been in a situation where you tried to give, like you tried to support, you tried to pay a compliment, you tried to do something nice for somebody and they didn't receive it well, and they were like, no, don't, stop. I got it. No, you don't have to do that. Stop. No, it's too much. Please. And you're just like, dude, I want to do this. Just like accept my gift. Like it takes away from the experience for the gifter. Do you realize God feels this way? The universe feels this way. Like, bitch, I'm trying to send you money that you didn't earn. I'm trying to send you clients. I'm trying to send you proof of how cute you look today. You're exhausted. I'm trying to send you support and you're not receiving your support. Woman, like that's how it works. So practice receiving without guilt. This is going to help you rebalance. Okay. So when you can get this through your mind, like start conditioning this in your mind right now. The abundance that you want, that you are dreaming of, that you are wishing for, that you are journaling about, that you are working so hard for is not going to be earned through effort. It's not going to be earned through effort. It's going to be allowed through alignment. What that means is you are going to decide what it is that you want, and there are going to be actions that are required to be taken to get you there. But then you have to allow it to. Some things that some of y'all want are so big, there's no way in hell you could ever effort yourself to them. Like that was true for me. When before I started my business, and I was dreaming of earning millions and millions of dollars through effort alone, I wouldn't have gotten there till I was probably like 90 years old. Somehow, even without realizing, like the quantum leaps took place because I was receiving, because I was surrendering, which fast-tracked a lot of that process. Okay. So if you only believe that the thing you want can be earned through efforting, well, probably you're not going to dream as big as you could because it's linked to effort and you know how much time you have in the day. You know that you're exhausted right now. So how the hell are you going to get yourself 10x to where you are when it's all linked to efforting? So you're automatically going to play a smaller game and you're going to continue to perpetuate that. But if you realize the spiritual, energetic, invisible components that are around and supporting us all, well, then you realize that it's a twofold game, right? Yes, there's going to be action, but then when you can take that action in alignment and then meet it with the feminine, when the action is done, the receiving takes care of the rest. That's when the quantum leaps happen. That's when the collapsing of time happens. Now, when you are able to do this, this leads to our biggest edge in business, which is our feminine edge. When you really understand this energy will always outperform strategy. This strategy creates the structure. The energy creates the magnetism. This is the true, if you build it, they will come. Build it, but then know that they will come. Know that they will find it. Know that they will buy. You can't force people to get there. You can't force people to buy. When you're overdoing it, it's because somehow, some way you think that's going to force people to do the thing that you want them to do. Build it, masculine, and they will come. Feminine. They will be magnetized. Ultimately, the feminine edge is not a formula, it's a frequency. That's what people buy from. That's what does the attracting. That it's your frequency that's going to 10x, 20x, 100x what it is that you're doing now. It doesn't conceptually make sense how far I've gone in the past couple years. Energetically, it does. The invisible components, when you take those into consideration, now that makes sense. And so many of you can relate to this too. What if you fully trusted it? Some of you have 2x or 3x'd because you slightly believed and you slightly allowed yourself to receive. Those exponential results are on the other side of your feminine edge. The frequency that happens when you find this balance between these two energies. So these women that you see in business and online business and everywhere that seem to be scaling in a way that doesn't make sense, it's not necessarily that they're doing more. Although that could be happening. They might be doing more than you, but they probably have the team, right? They probably have the structure that allows them to. But that's not necessarily why they're scaling and growing it the way that they are. They're doing that because they're vibrating differently. They are allowing themselves to receive on that level. They built it and they know that the people are on their way. They're allowing versus forcing versus overly efforting. Or they let the team do the efforting, right? It's kind of a workaround too. So the new paradigm, and why I'm so excited to talk about this month, is if we can all learn how to embody and embrace and understand our feminine edge, which means we're leading with energy and intuition and magnetism while letting the structure serve us, then all of that hustle culture conversation is just it's going to be an option, but people will know it's not the only option. It's only recently that I knew that there and saw and believed that there was another option to that, because that dominated the conversation. I would love to see a rebirth of business, not a rebirth, but like an explosion of businesses that lead and clearly lead with feminine edge to make this so undeniable. So how I do this and how I'm learning to do this myself as somebody who has seriously had to rebalance, and I'm still working on this, is I very intentionally set my time to do. There are actions. Plus I have support. I have lots of support. So I make sure the doing and what needs to do to build the thing gets done. But then I very intentionally set aside time to receive and to be and to trust. Not in the energy of guilt, not in the energy of just fully giving up, but a deeply rooted trust and surrender and being a match for the frequency that I want to attract. And understanding that that is equally as productive and even more powerful than the building in some cases. Okay. So if this episode was helpful, please let me know, screenshot it, share it in your stories, tag your people, make sure you're following the show. We put these episodes up on YouTube. So if you ever want to watch on YouTube, come say hi over there. And please, if you know a woman who is ready to step into her own feminine edge, share it with her. I'm sure she would really appreciate if you did. So stay tuned for the next few episodes. We're going to continue with the same theme. And then, like I said, our Throwback Thursdays will be on the same theme as well. And I will see you in the next episode of All In with Allie. See you there. Bye.